We are here today with Julia Bronkhorst, who plays an important part in an opera called Polen in Plan Zuid. It's a Dutch opera. It translates to the Polish in Plan Zuid. And I'm not going to explain the ins and outs of it, because Julia, you are going to do that. But before you are going to do that, perhaps you can introduce yourself.
I'm Julia Bronkhorst. I'm a Dutch soprano, and I sang a role in the story of my late husband. 8 years ago my husband died, but when he was still alive, he wrote a manuscript about his life, and especially about the time that he was a hidden child in Brabant. So that means during the Second World War. And when he came back as a small boy to his real mother, he came in another world and he didn't feel at home. And he had a lot of difficulties with his mother. His father didn't come back from the Holocaust. And the story he wrote about tells the problems he had during that era. When he was still alive, he tried to give this story to a big publisher in Holland, Contact, and actually she was very interested in this book because it's historically very interesting what he wrote, and it was also very good written. So she wanted to publish it, but she wanted too much changings in this story, and on a certain moment he tried it, but on a certain moment my husband said, "Okay, basta, I will stop." Then he died, and 1 year after his death I decided to publish this book with the help of a friend via internet on a site called Blurb. Plan Zuid refers to the area which is now called Riverside area, and my husband lived in the Rooseveltlaan. And Polish means the Jewish Polish people that lived in that area at the time. He wrote this story and I published after his life this little book together with a friend, and then I put it in all sorts of bookstores in Amsterdam. And after half a year I got a phone call from friends of mine that this book had a review in one of the biggest papers in Amsterdam, in Holland, NRC. But then afterwards I was called for half a year or emailed with the question if publisher Bronkhorst, me, wanted to send the book to all those bookstores.
So Julia, it proved a quite big success, unexpectedly, for a self-published book, which is very unusual to reach national bookstores in that way. But it didn't stop there either, because suddenly you received notice from a well-known Dutch composer, Caroline Ansink, who wanted to turn it into an opera.
Yes, that's correct. So it was wonderful that she wanted to do that, and then she asked the libretto writer, Olaf Mulder, to make a libretto out of the book Polen in Plan Zuid, which is quite different story. And Olaf could keep the strength of the story in his libretto, but changed it a little bit. He made the story milder than the story in the book. And he wrote me in the story. I was not there during the Second World War, so I had no real function in the story. But in the opera I did. I had a sort of function, I was a sort of figure, Deus ex machina. I came into the scene when something went wrong. And I triggered the head figure to be open to the strength of life. And I opened also the strength in himself.
You should perhaps tell us something about the plot, the story of the opera, how it evolves.
Okay. Well, it tells the story of this young boy living in Brabant with loving people, loving parents and brothers and sisters that were much older than himself. He was a hidden child, and she looked after him as if he was her own son, but he wasn't, of course. But she gave him love and a happy youth for a couple of years. But then after the Second World War, his own mother was back from the camp. His father didn't come back from the camp, and he didn't survive it, but his mother did, and she, of course she wanted her son back. But my husband didn't recognize this mother, who was in a very bad state. She survived the camp with a lot of sickness and other difficult stories. So he had a lot of difficulties with her as a young child, and all her fears, and he got her fears on his shoulders.
She was traumatized.
Yes, yes, she was. And in the story of the book and also in the opera, he revolted this woman. But in the end of the opera, he accepts the way his mother was. And he did not in the book, but he did when he talked about it. So the book reflects actually the child that was revolting the mother, but also the grown-up person that looked back to his youth. And that's so important because that's so wonderful how the libretto writer wrote this.
Yes, this is clear. You should tell us also something. We still don't know the name of your husband. There's a special story to that as well.
Yes, the name he wanted to use was the name he was given when he was a hidden child. And he wanted to keep away his own name because he didn't want to hurt the people he wrote about. All the names were changed. Everything was changed in the book. So he didn't want to have his own name on the book as well. And I still have this feeling of him in my heart, so I won't tell his own name.
But you are going to tell us his hidden child name.
Yes, Daniel Vermeulen.
Which is the leading character in the opera.
Yes. And the person that sings this role was a person that I studied together with, Hans de Vries. And it felt so nice for me to sing with him. It was beautiful to do. And Hans sings the small Daniel, but also the grown-up Daniel. As the mother was beautifully sung also by Myra Kroese, and it's an alto, and Myra sings the mother in Brabant, but also the real mother of Daniel, and also the aunt, and also the dancing teacher. So we all have different roles. I also have different roles. I'm the neighbor girl, the niece, I'm the girl that is working in the kibbutz, I am the girl that is his dance partner, and finally I will become his loving wife.
So Julia, we are now going to watch a few highlights of the opera. In any case, key points of the opera, which are important to you because you selected them yourself for this production, this interview. Which fragment are we going to see first?
We are going to see three figures. One is the mother, not a real mother, but a mother that looked after Daniel during the war. And she says goodbye to him because he has to go back to his own mother in Amsterdam. And Daniel and the girl, the mysterious girl, that's me, they are singing together because this girl, knows actually exactly what Daniel is thinking. So they react on the mother. Mother, you are coming with us. No, I can't. You are going back to your own mother. That's the first fragment.
For the second scene, Julia, you selected a fragment with his real mother.
Yes.
Can you tell us something about it?
They are in a transit house and they are eating, and Daniel is making this cross. He learned that in the south of Holland, and his mother gets almost hysterical. That's not what has to be done in a Jewish family.
Because he was hiding with a Christian family.
Yes. Yeah. This scene tells the story like this.
Excerpts, we see the mother crying. Can you explain this to us?
Yes, she's crying because she can't cope with life anymore. She has a nervous breakdown, and everything that doesn't go in the way she has in her mind that is necessary for her. So, for instance, that Daniel is coming home late. She can't cope anymore with that. There's one thing that they can. That they laugh together, and that's very important. So Daniel makes fun of his family, he imitates some of his relatives, and then she finally laughs like mad, and they dance together. In the last scene, the mysterious girl who played all these different positive roles in his life in the opera now emerges as his true love, and they sing a love duet, and that's the end of the opera.
How did these performances go in the Netherlands?
Well, unexpectedly, all the halls where we performed, and there were not so big halls except for one, they were sold out. And even in The Hague we had to go to a bigger hall because the smaller hall was too small for all the audience that wanted to visit. So And we also had a very good review with 5 stars. So the success went on and on and on. People asked me, because I was the singer but also the production leading woman, they asked me, why don't you continue with this production? So every year around 4 or 5 May, again this story. And I have been thinking about it, but the money is not so big anymore in Holland, and it's very complicated to find funding for it again and again. So actually we have a new plan. We have this plan of making it very small, and it happened because I got an invitation in Cape Town, where I was a couple of months ago for concerts, and I was in the Holocaust Museum, and I spoke about this possibility of doing a very small performance of this opera. So what Olaf, the libretto writer but also the director, decided to do is show parts of the DVD, tell the story about it, tell the story in song and image. So that's what we are going to do next.
Is there something you would like to add as a conclusion at this interview?
Yes, that I'm very happy that I could perform and sing in the story of my late husband, and that I could bring his story to the world. And actually I'm very grateful for that, and also for the possibilities that still are possible in the future.
Of course. I wish you very much success for this opera, and thank you for this interview.
And thank you for your help.